It is 80 degrees outside, guys. Well, 81 to be exact. And I'm growing radishes here in Florida. How is that even possible? Well, today we're going to talk about how you can grow radishes in the winter here in Florida. So today we are all about radishes, and I'm going to tell you from end to end how I grow my radishes. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you know I'm not a huge radish fan, but we are going to cook some of these up because you guys have given me some ideas about how to actually cook these so that they're not like peppery and bitter, or at least that's the way I taste them as. So, first steps with growing radishes is the bed preparation. At the beginning of fall, I actually amended this bed. I put down bone meal, kelp meal, and a little bit of Nutra Rich, which I got from Azure Standard, down into the bed, and then I raked it in really well. Before this, I was growing cowpeas in here, which is a really good cover crop, and I'm really into growing cover crops during the summer to help in fall and spring in giving that nutrients back into the soil. And then I just cut those down and I laid them straight into the bed to add more of the nutrient. And then the next thing I did was I waited for the appropriate time. And 80 degrees clearly is not the appropriate time. But for here in Florida, if you want to get a head start on your radishes, you can actually start them when the heat of the day is still in the 80s. The big point is, what are the nighttime temperatures? And so you want nighttime temperatures in the 60s. Even the high 60s will work. I planted these guys out in September, which is just a tad bit too early, and they have grown, and some of them are bulbing. So I take that as a win. Now, it probably would have been better for me to wait probably about 30 more days for the temperatures to get a little bit cooler in the evening times, because these took way longer than radishes should take. And that I chalk that up to the fact that it was not cool enough at night. So you're aiming for the 60s. Low 60s is better. 50s are even more better, and they are going to grow and bulb up even faster. The next big thing you need to know to be able to grow radishes here in the South, where it really doesn't get cold enough for them, is to grow the right varieties. So there's a few different varieties that I have grown in my garden that have worked really well, which are cherry bells, watermelon radishes, which are a really cool radish because they look like watermelons. Are like green on the outside, red on the inside. Really, really pretty radish. And then daikon radishes, which are a white long radish, kind of looks like a parsnip. Those do particularly well down here because they are meant for a warmer climate. They do take longer than traditional radishes, which are anywhere from 30 to 60 days. Daikons can take up to 90 days to get to their full size because they're bigger. They're much bigger. Instead of the size of a marble, they're the size of a 6-inch carrot. So the first step in growing radishes is to seed the radishes. So besides these full-grown radishes over here, down here in front of us, we have some watermelon radishes that I just recently planted, and they came up super, super quick. And so the way that you want to do these is to direct sow them with maybe just a tiny bit of roughing of the soil so that they fall in to the little cracks and stuff. You don't necessarily have to fully cover them. And then keep them watered. These guys popped up in about 5 days. Now, once they pop up, you want to make sure that there's at least 2 to 4 inches between each radish. So now I'm going to be thinning some of these guys. So this one right here is sitting in between this radish and this radish. Now these two look like they're about 2.5 inches, so I'm okay with that. But this one has to go. So I just pull him up. If they're super, super close and you're concerned about pulling them up and disturbing their roots, you can actually just cut at the base, and that should kill them off. So let's get a couple more. I have some weeds in here. That's a weed. That is a radish. These two radishes are very close together. And I'm picking the one that looks more healthy. This one looks kind of leggy, so I don't want that one. These two right here are pretty close together. I'm going to take this one out because that gives plenty of clearance between these two. And then over here, we're going to get rid of this guy. See if there's any more. This is a weed. It's not a radish. Here's some more radishes. That's a weed right next to it. Sorry, I'm still weeding out the beds from when I traveled. Right. And then these two guys are a little close together, so I'm going to take this one out. And you can see a new one coming in right there. And let's just see if there's any more that are standing out to me. Oh, these two right here. This one looks a little leggy, so I'm going to take this one. Once your radishes have sprouted and then you've thinned them, and just so that you know, you don't have to thin them right away. You can actually wait until they get much bigger to thin them. The downside of doing it when they're a little bit bigger is the fact that by pulling one up out of the ground, you could be disturbing the roots around the one that you want to keep, depending on how close they are. So I like to get them while they're small. But if you don't get to them, it's no big deal. Just cut it at the base and it will kill the plant. And I know it is difficult to thin baby plants, especially healthy baby plants that look like they're going to do just fine. The problem is if you don't thin them, they will not create roots. Radishes and turnips and carrots are notorious for this. If they don't have space in between each other without touching the root part, not the plant part, but the root part, they will just give up and stop growing. That happened with a lot of mine here because when I left on vacation, I did not thin these. I just threw a bunch of seeds down and let them grow. Since I've gotten back, I have had to pull a bunch in order to give room for some of them because some were these big, nice, beautiful, bushy plants, but they had no roots and it's been 75 days. So they should have roots. And since they didn't, it's not too late. It's still great weather and they still could produce roots. So I thinned at that point, which was a tremendous effort to try to separate two plants that were right next to each other. So don't wait. Don't be like me. Don't wait till you get to this point. Your next step for growing radishes is to make sure that they're getting plenty of water. I have a bunch on this side right here that got about 1 inch of water through the whole season, which is awesome. If you're not sure how much 1 inch of water is a week, the easiest way to do this is to hold your sprayer to a 1 square foot square and hold it there for between 30 and 60 seconds. That is 1 inch of water. Now, if you're like me and you have sprinklers or drip irrigation or micro sprayers, you can take a small, shallow bowl and lay it out into your bed and let your sprayer, sprinklers, drip irrigation run against it for its cycle. And then take a tape measure and measure how much water is holding in the bottom of that shallow bowl. And then that will tell you if you're at a 1/2 inch, that means you need to water that exact amount twice a week. If you're at a 1/4 of an inch, that means you need to water either a longer period of time to get to the 1/2 inch or you need to water more often. I'd strongly encourage the water longer for less amount of times during the week because what that will do is it will create deep watering. It'll allow the water to get down deep into the roots, and then what happens is the roots push down to try to reach that water, and it creates a healthier base for the plant, especially for root crops. Now in terms for fertilizing, I have actually not fertilized these. I was gone, so I wasn't going to fertilize them, and they seem to be doing just fine on their own. They are green and they are bushy and they look beautiful. I am not worried about these. I'm not even going to try to fertilize them at this point. By putting down the bone meal and the kelp meal before I left, that gave it all the nutrients it needs. And I think I can do a second round and still not add any fertilizer. But if your plants are showing signs of stress, like yellowing leaves or the growth is stunted, they're not getting super tall, but please be aware that certain varieties don't get super tall. So cherry bells only get like 3 or 4 inches tall. These mostly are types of daikon radishes, so they are going to get really tall and bushy. So don't always judge it by how tall the plant is. You have to base it on the type of variety that you're growing as to how tall the top of the plant's going to be. But if they do seem to be stunted, if they do seem to be yellowing, then you probably do need to hit them with a more balanced fertilizer, not nitrogen rich. And nitrogen is that first number. So like in Alaska fish fertilizer, it's a 511. That means the 5 is the nitrogen number. And so if you put that one on here, it's going to create this big, beautiful leafy green top and not a lot of roots. What you really need is something where that first number is lower than the next two numbers, or at least the middle number, which is the phosphorus and potassium. You want the phosphorus and the potassium to help with root growth and plant health. That's what you want to focus on here. And if you can find a fertilizer that has a 0 in the nitrogen, you're probably even better off. So now let's talk about pest and disease, because I have had a little bit of pest activity and I have had some disease activity. Right here is my main bug culprit lately, and that is snails and slugs. I get a lot of snails and slugs in this particular bed. I'm not 100% sure why. Slugs and snails have been like a common issue in my garden. I've done the beer traps, I've done the laying of cardboard down, I've done a lot of things. I've used Sluggo, but now mainly what I do is I actually go out at night, because typically they're not here during the day. That should show you how bad of a slug problem I have, or snail problem that I have, that they're out during the day. At night when I come out here, I take some gloves and I pull them off and I dispatch them or destroy them. Same thing with the slugs, I destroy them. Usually I just cut them. I used to like put them in some soapy water and stuff, but that creates like a really, really gross situation later on in the day. So I don't do that anymore. But once you've destroyed them, you just have to keep up with it. Every single night I go out here with a headlamp, and that is the best way that I have determined to be able to keep my slug and snail issue down to a minimum. There are other bugs that can bother your radishes, or different kinds of worms and caterpillars and things like that. You can use BT or spinoside to get rid of them, but honestly, I don't really fuss with that with radishes. They're not going to destroy the part that I'm going to eat, which is the root. You can eat the greens if you want. You can eat the greens. I'm not a huge fan, but there are people out there that absolutely love radish greens or beet greens. You can totally eat those, and if that is something that you're interested in, you'll want to hand pick off those worms. Otherwise, they're going to chew up a lot of the leaf and there's not going to be a lot left for you. Now that we've talked about pests, let's talk about disease. This right here is starting to show some disease, and you can kind of see some underneath here too. But this spotting on the leaves, this is probably some sort of fungal blight, disease going on here. Once again, super common in a Florida garden. It is next to impossible to not have a fungal issue in your garden. Now, there's a couple things that I do to solve these types of issues, and the first one is a hydrogen peroxide and water mix, and I spray that once a week. It's kind of my preventative plan that I use, especially on cucumbers, squash, tomatoes, anything that's really, really prone to blight. But with radishes, they grow up so quick. I mean, even these guys at 60 days is still really, really fast, that by the time the blight takes over, you're already harvesting. So I actually don't treat these. I don't feel the need to treat really fast growing plants. Now we're going to get into harvesting these. And the first thing that I do when I go to harvest a radish is I check to see what the root looks like. It's very much like a carrot, where you're going to pull the dirt from around the base of the plant and look for the radish root and see how big it is and whether it's big enough for you to pull. If it's not, if it's very, very tiny or skinny, just keep leaving it in there and it will continue to grow, especially as the temperatures get better. So let's start here. That's too tiny. Okay, this one looks pretty good. Let's pull him out. Another cool thing is that by pulling out the bigger ones or medium-sized ones now, the ones that are smaller that were crowded out before will have a chance to get bigger. So don't pull them yet. Leave them in there. This is a daikon radish. As you can see, it's white and it looks more like a carrot. They get much bigger than this, but I like taking them small. And a lot of people will counsel you to take your radishes when they're small because they taste better. If you let them get super, super big, they will taste very much woody is the phrase. It's more about texture than I think it is about taste. Not that I'm a huge expert. I don't like to grow or eat radishes, but we're gonna try some out. Look, there's another one. Oh, this one looks big. Okay, this one's fairly sizable, or it looks that way. Let's get them up and then we can tell. And all you do is I get to the, oh, we got slugs. I get to the base of the plant and I hold the whole plant and then I kind of wiggle it around just to like loosen it up so it doesn't break. The worst thing that can happen, well, not the worst, but one of the sucky things that can happen is if you just pull straight up, the plant will detach from the base and then you got to go digging for your radish, especially for one this big. Oh, so this, this is the daikon radish that everybody talks about. Look at that thing. That's about 6 inches long. Oh, it looks gorgeous. I'm looking forward to trying that one. And we're just going to keep going. Oh, I see some more. We're going to keep going around this bed and pull all the rest of them. This one I'm iffy about because, oh man, it's so close. I think I'm going to leave it because it is fairly small, but it's getting closer. And then if we look back here, trying to get all these leaves out of the way, this is the next one, and you can tell that one's way too small, so we're not going to pull that one. Another culprit. Okay, these are all too small. Yeah, you can see it right there. It's just a little too small. Man, there's snails all over. It's a little too small, a little too small. Yeah, all these are a little too small. I'm guessing it's because of the sun. It was getting shaded out. Yeah, see, too small. They were getting shaded out by this whole plant here, but I cut off the bottom leaves recently in hopes to get it a little bit more sun. Let's see here, what else we got? Oh, here's an example of two that are way too close to each other. I'm not sure if you can really tell, but there's a plant right here, and then here's the center of another plant. They are way too close to each other. So I'm going to see if this bigger one is ready to be harvested yet. And if it is, I'll pull it and leave the smaller one. Just got to find that root down here. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I think that's big enough. I mean, it's small, but it'll give the other one a chance to continue to grow. And I'm going to be really careful here because I don't want to disrupt that other one. Let's see if I can pull this one and leave that one. Yeah, success. Success. And that one lives to feed us on another day. And then here's another one. Once again, probably just a little too small. We'll let that keep growing. So we got all of our radishes. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the big one. Oh man, I can't hold them all. 6, 7, and then the first one we pulled, 8. So let's take a look at these beauties. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, it's kind of muggy out today. I'm going to separate the tops from the radishes. So there we go. Because I'm not a huge fan of radish greens, they are gonna go in the compost. If I had chickens, I would feed it to chickens because I think that they eat that, but I don't. Oop, I broke that one coming off. It's okay, we'll eat this one first. I do believe that radishes will store in your fridge for a good amount of time. You know, I think in the crisper drawer, I would assume like they're kind of like carrots. So I usually give them a high humidity. So I usually put like a paper towel that is a little bit wet. That's our big one. Excited. And here's another one. I think these were all daikon radishes. I can't wait to show you guys the watermelon radishes once we get those growing and up. I think they're going to go much faster because the weather is better than when these guys were planted. So hopefully those will grow faster and I can show you those because those are really cute. All right. Now let's get these guys inside and we are going to cook them up, and I'm going to do exactly like what you guys tell me, and I'm going to roast them, and we're going to see if I actually like them, because I don't like spicy and I don't like peppery. So I'm taking you guys' advice, and we're going to try these together. Hopefully we like them. Man, it was super muggy out there. I'm actually shocked that the humidity hasn't like calmed down even a little bit yet. But I mean, it felt like it was, and then all of a sudden today it felt like I was in a sauna again. But we do have better weather approaching, so hopefully we'll be back to nice, cool fall weather. Well, cool for Florida. So I think I'm going to go with cooking the biggest one and probably a couple of the smallest ones because I want to see if size matters in terms of peppery taste. So I'm going to do these two and this one, and then we're going to save these to see if I like them. Okay, sorry for the background noise. I got my dishwasher going, but it looks like these are done. And they definitely look different than I expected. They kind of remind me of like French fries or like potato chips. If I would have sliced them thinner, they probably would look exactly like potato chips. So I had to go grab a fork because I have to try these. So I've got the more mature, larger one on the left side, and then on this side I have the real immature, small ones to see if there's a taste difference between the two. Looks really hot. Oh, okay, it's soft. I'm nervous about this. Wow. You guys called it. Wow, those are really good. Let me try the younger one. Yeah, it reminds me of roasted carrots, but then fried potatoes too. There's no bitterness. There's no pepper. Wow. I put way too much salt on it though. I can taste that. It's almost like they're salty all on their own. This is a great little snack or side dish. I love the texture. I really like the texture. I'm a texture person. So I really like that it has a bite to it, but then there's like a softness to it too. It kind of reminds me of roasted. It reminds me so much of the texture of roasted carrots, but it tastes like kind of like potatoes, but not exactly. Karobi? Not 100% sure, but I do like it. Not peppery at all. You guys were right. I'm going to grow more of these, and this is exactly how I'm going to cook them. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys had fun. Happy gardening, guys.